Following is a repeat show that was previously broadcast on Unity FM.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Parenting Hour. You're tuned into Unity FM 93.5 here in the West Midlands and 105.1 if you're tuned into us on Inspire FM, whether you're in Milton Keynes, Peterborough, Luton, wherever you are, or whether you're in the West Midlands. Happy New Year to you all. Or actually, you may be listening to us further afield. You may be somewhere else in the UK. You may be abroad somewhere, because we know now that people are tuned in on the app wherever they go, and actually keep it by their side and tune into Unity FM very regularly. So that's great news indeed if you are tuned in there. Or if you're driving home, a bit tired after the first day back, after a couple of weeks off, or a couple of days off, even if you didn't get a couple of weeks off, and wondering what are we going to be talking about this evening. Well, we have a very interesting show for you again this evening, focusing in on the new year. I know we can start things at different times of the year as Muslims, but it's good to have a mark and kind of measure ourselves in where we've been over that time. So whether it is New Year and we go this 12 months, or whether we go from Ramadan to Ramadan, or the Islamic New Year to the Islamic New Year, we need to have a measure in there to see what are we doing and what are we achieving and where are we going in our life, and reflecting back on the last year and learning from that. And I'm saying this from somebody that's kind of watched a couple of films over the holidays, with a couple of sad films with people dying in them, and thinking, we don't think about death. We think that will happen to others. We don't think it can happen to us. But what are we leaving behind? What kind of a legacy are we leaving behind ourselves, to our families, to our communities, to our society that we're trying to help and support? What are we doing about this? What kind of are we even thinking about legacy? Are we thinking of achieving and putting in something that we can achieve and work on, and asking Allah to help us to achieve those things over a year's time? Or are we just plodding through the days one by one, and then find, this week is gone, this month is gone, this year has gone, where's it gone to? And then we find we're just kind of, not even living those days. So that's basically what we're going to be talking about this evening, in looking at how we can live every day, live to be rewarded every day, if I put it like this, live to the fullest every day, live to achieving things, live to putting new concepts in place, live to try and better ourselves as human beings, better ourselves for who we are, in whatever role we have. And it's an important role. Each one of us play an important role in our families, in our friendships, in our communities. So we have a lot to contribute, alhamdulillah. And with me, and I'd love to welcome Imelda back. Indeed, we've had Imelda on the show many times before, and she's excellent at reminding us about forming these goals and what we want to do to achieve. So with me, we have Imelda, and later on we're going to have another guest talking about something actually that they are doing and that they started off. But let me start with Imelda first. Welcome, Imelda. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, Kathleen. And I think you've hit something that I've been thinking about, and a lot of people thinking about, especially as we get older. Like you said, we start to reflect what and legacy. In other words, what is my legacy and what I'm going to leave behind. But actually, what in this new year, what will make me feel good about myself? So think about last year, and we've been talking about mental health and people feeling anxious or feeling depressed, and that seems to be the dish of the day, doesn't it? That every, we say that life is anxiety inducing. And so, like you said, whether it's Ramadan to Ramadan, a Muslim New Year, this New Year, any opportunity where I think, you know what, I have that ability to change things around. If I know how to do it, if I've got this plan, if I've got a reflection of what happened last year, actually a reflection of what demotivated me last year. So now, reflection is about not the doom and gloom of, oh, I didn't fulfill this goal, and I didn't do this, and I could have done this, and I should have done that. A reflection is about what happened last year, and actually I could do things to change that around. I could, if I have some goals, some dreams, I need a plan. And we talk to our parents about this, don't we? That life has to be planned. We know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the best of planners, but we also know that we make dua to him to help us succeed in the plan that we set for ourselves. So it's really important, isn't it, that we have a plan, because our children are looking at us, and we want them to think they're clueless. These parents, they've no plan. So we want them to know we have a plan, but also our brain, our heart does ask us, subhanAllah, we're like individuals saying, what's the plan? What's your plan this week? What's your plan for this year? So a plan is essential, really, in our everyday living for actually our mental health. And mental health really is that's the foundation upon which we're going to do everything. We're going to set our goals in a way based on, maybe that's the first goal, isn't it, Kathleen? That if I'm going to achieve anything, I need to look at where is my mental health. In other words, I don't want to be self-defeating. Mm-hmm. I don't want to set my bar too high and my goals too high. So we're going to look at that how not to do that, how not to be defeatist in those goals, how to make those manageable. And we know we've got a plan, haven't we, that people use to help people.
Great. You mentioned two things there that I'm going to unpick a little bit. So you mentioned reflection and goals. So let us talk about reflection first. We all say it's important to reflect because we need to reflect on what we've done so we can learn from this. But a lot of people don't know how to reflect. They've never done this before. They just continue on thinking, maybe not even thinking, because if they were thinking, they probably would have been reflecting. So how can we break that down for our listeners to understand what you mean by reflection?
So not just what we mean by reflecting, but how we reflect. I think you're saying, aren't you? It's important how we reflect. So I can reflect on something in two ways. I can reflect on something where I say to myself, oh, look at that. Look at the way you behaved. Look at what you didn't achieve. I can be the finger pointing at myself. I can lack compassion and mercy to myself and say, you need to expect more of yourself. You should have done better. This word should, and we in our training, we say, take out the word should, because we could, we can, we might, but should is really a harsh word. And so if I'm going to reflect, how I reflect is really, really important. So reflecting is basically having the ability without judgment, without bringing myself down, making myself feel bad about myself. In other words, we know, and we teach this, don't we? Roadblocks to communication. Roadblocks to communicate with myself would be shaming myself, blaming myself. So I want to sit down somewhere, and I love this word mindful. How when mindfulness behavior, this word mindful, sitting down mindfully, preferably sitting in nature, sitting with a cup of tea, sitting where I feel safe with myself, and just asking myself gently, what happened last year? Some of the things you're going to do, you weren't able to do them. What happened? Why weren't you able to do that? What do you think you need? Do you think you didn't? In other words, it's almost like being, and I do this with myself, being two people. I sit with myself and ask myself questions, but in a very kind, compassionate way. Because the minute you start blaming and shaming and upsetting yourself, you're not going to achieve your goal. So reflection is something that we use the word mindful, but mindful means in a peaceful way. Does that make sense, Kathleen, of how to sit with yourself and how to reflect in a more gentle way?
Definitely makes sense. So I think a lot of us, this is new to people, to be gentle, to be compassionate, to be merciful, as you're saying, on oneself, because we often have that kind of a woodpecker sitting on our shoulder, as you mentioned, talking into this ear here, going, "You're stupid, you silly, why did you do this? Why did you say that?" So we have all that negativity coming in, and we need to kind of unpick this before we can move forward, before we can give ourselves a break, before we can think of making those goals that we're going to come on to in a bit. And I love that idea that you kind of sit and talk to yourself, and you reminded me kind of in a way of a two-chair concept of, talking to yourself and moving from one chair to another. You're nodding there. I can see you. I know our listeners can't see you because they can only hear us both, but you're nodding to this. So you mentioned some ways there that people can reflect better. Is there any other tips that you can give people to start this process if they've never done it before, if they've never thought about reflection before, if never gone past that kind of superficial reflection, but to go a bit deeper? Is there any tips you can give them about that?
So I mean, there's general advice about this, isn't there? It's about sitting down in a safe space with yourself, as we said, being gentle, and thinking, you know what, right now I haven't set a goal. I'm going to write down, I'm going to chart things which I think would be really healthy for me to change, to achieve. They may be healthy for me personally. They may be healthy for my family. They may have to do with my friends. So I'm just going to write down some ideas. So there's no goal, so no pressure. No, there's no goal right now. There's ideas. I'm going to write them down. And I'm either, when I've written them all down, I'm going to have a look at them. And I'm either going to ask myself, okay, so what here, is this something that you can achieve on your own? What here is actually, to achieve this, you might need other people? Is this something that other people are involved in? The achievement is about other people and relationships. And so, there are people, and it's not me, Kathleen, who love spreadsheets on their computers. I write it all down, but almost a spreadsheet of what's going on in your mind. And then, having looked at all that, thinking, here's my pen, thinking, this is something I think I could tackle this year. And so, moving on from that, we're told, so many people talk about this. University students use it. We use it with parents, about looking at something called SMART goals. And maybe a lot of people who are listening know about SMART goals. And some people I talk to have never heard about SMART goals. So it's really good to go over what a SMART goal is. And we can talk about that now, can't we? And I know you can talk about SMART goals very well as well, Kathleen.
You can do better than me. Let's talk about SMART goals then.
So SMART, S-M-A-R-T, is just an acronym. And we use it looking at, so it's a SMART goal. So what does SMART mean? So when we look at SMART, so the S in SMART means something. So we actually say SMART means specific. S in SMART means specific. So in other words, be specific, because your brain, this is what the neuroscientists are telling us. So we believe the science. This brain says, don't give me a whole load of, hokey pokey and this and that. Tell me specifically what you want me to do. How we can't achieve something unless and we do this with children, don't we? We say, if we want to get them to go out to the supermarket, We're going to tell them specifically, this is what's going to happen. We're going to go on this trip. This is what. So the brain, like as if it's your child, needs to know specifically. So being specific, but I also think the S in SMART is also something sustainable, which is also coming on to the M. So SMART means specific, M, something we measure. So sometimes we start on a goal and we do it. Some days we follow it, some days we don't. And we're not following, we're not charting it. So if I measure, for instance, if I say every day I'll do 5 minutes of this, or every day I'll do half an hour of this, if I do more, that's great. But if I only achieve what I've measured, then that's good. So that's the A then. So SM, measurable. A, I make the S and M achievable. So I decide on something that I know I can achieve. And what I love is the saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves the small things we do every day. And the first time I heard that, I thought, subhanallah, what permission for me to just in a small scale, inshallah, leading to bigger things. I have the permission of Allah to do something small, and He's happy with that. So why wouldn't I be happy with that as well? So make it achievable. Then the R in SMART is realistic. And honestly, look, if you look, Kathleen, at people we've known ourselves, people we've known over the years, and they've had these great ideas and great goals, and mashallah, mashallah. And then many years later, a year later, we ask them, oh, did you manage? And oh, no, I didn't manage. So sometimes big goals are great and are achievable for some people. But this is another thing about being smart. Understand yourself. Don't set yourself up to fail. And that's a big thing. Don't set yourself up to fail in a goal. Make it smaller and let it get bigger. And then the T in SMART is time related. So in other words, it is a good thing to say to yourself, I'm going to try and do this in, say, 3 months, 4 months. Maybe my maximum would be 6 months. The worst case scenario would be it's by the end of the year. But it's better to say to yourself in the beginning, I'm really going to do my best to do this in a specific period of time. And then follow that, chart that every week. I don't know what it is. If it's a diet, you might chart it every day. But actually not letting it run on and on, because if a goal is a goal that can go on and on and on, usually it's not achieved. So SMART, using all of those, so specific, measurable, achievable, and then, making it relevant. So the R is also about relevant, making it attainable. So all those things, you can see online what SMART means and how different people use it. And so planning how to achieve the goal and how to do it is one of the most important things before you start.
That's really good, the way you've broken down SMART indeed, so people can understand that and kind of be able to bring it into their lives to achieve things. I'm wondering if you could give us, maybe run through a little example for some of our listeners that are listening in, as you say, that haven't heard this before. I know if you're in business, you probably have heard this, and even your children coming home from school may be telling you about this, because they're taught it now in some subjects in school, and they follow this for a way of learning and achieving what they're trying to achieve in schools. But some of our parents won't know this. Is there a way that we can kind of break it down with an example? Because I know when I'm learning, I love examples to help me to learn.
So there's so many examples. I'll give you one that today that came to me, and someone called me about something, a problem in the family, and amongst all the things she said, she said that there doesn't seem to be any fun. And a lot of families say this, we don't spend enough fun time together. Or the children say, you're no fun. So everyone else is fun and we're all so serious. So she was saying, that her goal this year is introduce more fun. So I was saying to so how would you go about doing that? So I mentioned SMART. So we talked about write down the things that. So who is the fun with? Is the fun with your husband? Is it with family? Is it with children? Identify who the fun is with. So she's saying with the children. So if the goal is fun with the children, it has to be fun that the children want. So ask them what is fun. Whereas sometimes, we decide, oh, this is fun. And the kids are, that's not fun. That's your idea of fun. And so if I'm going to achieve my goal, I need to know who wants what. I need to ask them, when's the best time to do this? So it's kind of information gathering to achieve that goal. I need to gather the information as well on how will I achieve that? Am I going to enlist someone else? So is this going to be two of us creating this fun? Are the children involved in this fun? So really any goal begins with me gathering what information do I need to succeed? Whose advice am I going to ask about this goal? What do the people I'm doing it for? So say I'm doing it for someone else. What do they need from me that we succeed together? So if I'm inviting someone, again, I could say this year I'm going to walk more, and then I'm choosing a group of people to walk with. So I have to gather the information. We have WhatsApp groups. Who wants to walk? How often will we do it? Where will we meet?
And we're going into a commercial break very soon. And we need people to ring in maybe with some examples that they want some help with. So listeners, do phone in on 0121 772 8892 and come back and have a chat to us after this commercial break, talking about goals and how to make goals in this new year, inshallah.
شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك يا منان يا ديان يا غفور يا ودود يا رحمن يا رحيم لك الوجود يا شريك لك الله بيت الله يا لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك يا أوحد يا نعمة يا أحد يا شريك لك الله لبيك اللهم مجيب يا شريك لك لبيك يا موحد يا نعمة يا حليم يا شريك لك الله لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن النعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك شريك لك لبيك يا أوحد يا نعمة يا أحد يا شريك لك الله لبيك اللهم مجيب يا شريك لك رحيم يا قاحظ يا نعمة يا حليم يا شريك لك الله لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك لبيك.
Following is a repeat show that was previously broadcast on Unity FM.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Parenting Hour. You're tuned into Unity FM 93.5 here in the West Midlands and 105.1 on Inspire FM. Welcome to you wherever you're listening from, whether you're on your way home from work, whether you're at home with as a mum or dad with the children at home, whether you are abroad and doing something else. Welcome to this evening's show, this Parenting Hour show. We have another 30 minutes on air where we're going to be continuing talking about reflecting and making smart goals to make the most out of this year, this 2023, inshallah, so that at the end of 2023, coming into 2024, as we're measuring, we're taking this as a measurement. I know people take different times, as we mentioned earlier on, as measurements, but if you're taking this, that we can actually look back and say, I did this, I achieved this, I'm a better person because of this, or my family is better because of this, or we are having better times together, whatever it is that we are doing to be able to achieve our goals and to be able to think of leaving something behind, leaving a legacy behind. Because inshallah, I hope you'll all be here this time next year, but none of us know what could happen to any of us. And we want to make the most of every day. We've got Imelda with us, and we've been talking a lot about reflection and making smart goals. And you gave us a lovely example, Imelda, before we went into the break. And I'm inviting listeners to actually ring in, because you may have your own example, but don't know where to start, don't know what to do. So please, listeners, ring in and get this expert advice here this evening on 0121 772 8892. We'd love to hear if you have set a goal for yourself. If you have, how is that going? If you think that you're not going to set a goal for yourself and you've given up on the whole thing of goals and New Year's resolutions and etc., we'd love to hear from you also. What has made you think of that and what has stopped you from looking forward in making new goals? Indeed. Please share your experience with us online. There is the studio managers are in place, working really hard on the phone lines, waiting to put you through to us. And we'd love to hear from you indeed. So please do ring in and talk to us this evening and enlighten us with your voices. Indeed, we'd love to hear from you. Imelda, we were there before the break talking about having fun, which was a lovely example that you gave in talking to somebody today about how to have more fun in their home or in their family. And I think a lot of us don't have fun. And sometimes some Muslims think, to be a good Muslim doesn't mean having fun. But actually, that's not, the Prophet ﷺ was smiling and there was lots of fun things that he did as a father, as a grandfather. So it's not something in our fate to have fun. Maybe you can kind of tell us a little bit about how each one of us could enable us to have a little bit more fun in our lives.
So I think we were talking about fun and really reflecting that making a change is difficult, and so what whatever we're going to do in life, we should throw an awful lot of mercy and compassion. And we talk about this all the time, Kathleen, don't we? That stop and think before you do anything and throw a heap of compassion and mercy and kindness on it. So if for instance, like you said, we come up with this, there's going to be more fun in the family. What if your family has been so serious? So if I say go in one particular household, everyone in that household might think a goal is something serious, something to be achieved. So learning the Quran, learning a language, learning this and this, fantastic. But so many people realize that a goal could be attached to something healthy for you, which fun is one of them, or just doing something that relaxes you mentally, relaxes you physically. So in other words, sometimes when we look at goals and we look at life, we are so serious, and this does have an impact on our mental health, our family, when everything from an Islamic viewpoint looks like it has to be very, very serious. And we know that the brain loves fun, loves to feel good, to laugh. I joke about this with people about there's laughing therapy, which when I heard, I thought I'm going to train. And one day, this is my goal, to train as a laughing therapist. This is still one of my goals, which would sound silly to most people. It's a real therapy. And we know, subhanAllah, this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when we laugh, we release all these endorphins. So imagine if we know a sense of humor. So, when we get married and we say, what's on our top list of who we marry? Someone with a sense of humor. So this could be a goal. We're going to achieve a greater level of a sense of humor, because actually, talking of that as a goal, we know that a sense of humor actually helps with our unhealthy nafs. In other words, if I don't take myself so seriously, if my ego isn't upset all the time. So that would be an especially healthy goal within a whole family. Why don't we all stop taking each other so seriously? It doesn't mean we're not serious about learning and goals. So we can separate. There are goals which, we set for learning and achievement, and there are goals we set that are just feel good. These things feel good. So whether it's exercise, walking, laughing, joking, in a respectful way, thinking about actually having a range of goals that, do set us on a path of learning. So that's really good, isn't it, for us in terms of achieving the goals that we have when we think, I haven't read enough Quran this year, haven't done enough of this, or I could learn, I could improve my Arabic, I could learn a new language. But then, because the brain may be saying to you, okay, but where's the fun? Where's the fun? In other words, we're told as Muslims, aren't we, have a balanced life. Mm-hmm. So balance the fun and the play as goals with the other kinds of achievements. So I guess coming back, reflecting on, if we look at ourselves in the previous year, was I balanced? Were my goals balanced? This is a reflection, a question we should be asking ourselves. Was I balanced? Was I too hard on myself? Was I too easy on myself? These are conversations that we can have with each other, with the people we care about. Do you think we have too much fun as a family? Maybe we could have a few more serious goals. These are just questions, not to upset ourselves, not to upset anyone, just balanced reflections about where we'd like to be.
It's very nice to have that balance, and really wonderful. And we should be all doing this and reflecting, as you're saying, on making those goals. And what's come to my mind now as you're talking was that a lot of people feel that the goal is really up there, the perfection, and that's where I need to reach, but don't see the steps on that ladder as each one of them being a goal in a way to reach that wherever it is that they want to reach. So how can we help people today to break down those goals so that they are achievable, as you mentioned, in making those SMART goals, that they are realistic, that they are able to do this, that they are enthused and excited about doing something new, and feel that they're able to do something new for themselves?
Well, I guess you've used a great analogy there, saying, imagine that ladder. So imagine that ladder, it's each step. So we say, take it step by step. So we could draw a ladder. I'm drawing one right now. Draw a ladder and think, how many steps will my ladder? So not someone else's ladder. How many steps on my ladder? And say my ladder has 10 steps. And what's my number one? So my number one step, that should be that's the easy step. We know that everyone could step up on the first one. It's when we get to the top. So if my ladder is 30 steps and I'm at the top, it's a bit scary. I feel great because I've reached the top, but I'm also scared I might fall off as well. So what if I just go slowly? So I'm just going to slowly on the first step. Good. Tick. Look at that, how I got there. Number 2, second step. So it really is that ladder, which is a great way of writing it down, that actually preparing your ladder, how many steps on your ladder. And if you know that you say to yourself, I've got 10 steps, and then you write down, what will I do on each one? So that's your plan. That's your preparation. And that's how we know our mind can adapt to anything. Subhanallah, that's the brain that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created. He made us adaptable. But he didn't say it's easy to adapt. He said that, we'll need a plan, and we may need help. We may have to do it alone. And sometimes that achievement of doing something alone is what makes you feel that you've made more of an achievement. But if someone helps you, even better. But writing down on that ladder, what is each step? In other words, try not to get onto that ladder if you don't know what step 10 is at the top. Don't go up a ladder and you don't know where it's going, like Jack and the Beanstalk, and it goes up and you don't, you're not. Make sure number them if this works for you, and know what each step will take. And do a little write-up. So number 1, do a write-up. Number 2, do a write-up. This is what number 2 is. This is not number 3 is. In other words, your brain and heart, but your brain will rest with the plan if you don't make yourself anxious, because an unplanned goal is a cause for anxiety. I've got a goal, but I'm anxious because I really don't know what my 10th step is. Some people like to plan like that. Oh, I'll see where it gets me. For some people, that works. But for most people, we know that doesn't work. That causes anxiety. So I guess it depends where your mental health is. And it's like, I'm getting on the first step and I'm just going to go. That's not necessarily wrong, but it's not for everyone. Most people tend to like to know where they're going in order to achieve something. And it's helpful.
Wow, that's a very, very visual and very great realistic example that you've given, because, I was there with you with the Jack and the Beanstalk going up and then feeling, frightened when I was crossed that last step. Indeed, what's there for me and what's going to happen. But I love the way that we can visualize it. And then when you're talking about writing it down, because actually, if we're doing that step by step and you've achieved that for something small, say, and not a huge goal, you could use that model again, I assume, for other goals then, because you've used that model and you've written it down what you've done.
Exactly. So this is the thing for every one of us, to use a model that works for me. So other people tell you, why don't you do this? And why don't you do that? And use this and use that. And we're kind of doing that a little bit now. But really the advice would always be, whether it's this ladder, using SMART, you find something you think, this is the one that rests well with me. This is the one that I could do with more ease and feel okay with. So find something that works for you. So these are suggestions, and that's what we say, Kathleen, all the time, isn't it? It's not so much advice. These are suggestions that may work for you. But if you're listening, you think, oh, that won't work for me, that's fine. Then ask the question, so I'm going to have a look at what works for me. And there's so many suggestions out there on achieving goals. So find something that works for you and then stick with it, because you've decided this is how it works for me. So, slow works for me better. A lot of people say I get overwhelmed, and a lot, I've got a lot of different friendship groups, and some goals are quite high. And I know a lot of people get overwhelmed by other people's goals for you. And so that's problematic. So think about, actually giving yourself permission to say, well, no, I like to take things slower. Don't be afraid to say that to yourself or other people. Because I know so many people who haven't achieved their goals because they've told someone, that thing about I'm giving up sugar, I'm giving up this, I'm giving up that, and you've told everyone, and now the pressure is on.
Yeah.
So, it's the same with a lot of people say when they want to pass the driving test, don't tell people the day of the test. Mm-hmm. Because, you can say to people, I'm not going to tell you the day of my test because there's so much pressure on you to pass on that day. And you don't want to go into the test with that pressure on you. So doing things the way, and that's what we said about reflection. Know yourself a little bit better before you embark on your goals.
Mm-hmm. And like you now, I was just going up that ladder again, and I was thinking of some people that have maybe gone halfway up that ladder, and then they've looked up and said, no, it's not quite like that I wanted. Do they have to continue that ladder, or can they there and then halfway reflect and change what it is, change the outcome to do something different or to try and achieve something different?
Exactly. If you make a plan and then halfway up the ladder you think, well done, I've got halfway up the ladder, but I've realized that maybe there's another way to do this, there's another goal. That's a reflection, isn't it? You've still achieved a better goal that no one has to be right the first time. No one has to have a goal, and the only purpose of that goal is you have to achieve it. This is the goal. This is what I'm saying. I'm going to have to achieve it. So it is good to be consistent. It is good to say, but you can change how you reach that goal. You can change to another goal. But of course, there is a proviso here, isn't there? If I'm jumping halfway, and this is what we wouldn't want our children to see, that I halfway up a goal, I shift and go into another goal and then another goal. So it depends, doesn't it? On the one hand, giving myself a time of reflection if this plan hasn't worked for me, so I could still have the same goal and make some changes to the plan. So that's what we call flexibility, isn't it? To be flexible. But I'm not suggesting that we jump from one goal to another, because what we're telling our brain is, that we'll never achieve any one goal. We'll just keep jumping and jumping and jumping, never achieving any goal, if that makes sense. So
it does yes. Indeed. And we shouldn't be, as you mentioned, that's not right for messages we're giving our children. If that's the case, keep jumping. We should be there as an example to our children. But yes, but you're saying about reflecting back to make it, maybe even to tweak it. It may be that it just needs tweaking.
Yeah, because I'll never forget some years back, a mum sharing a child who'd failed the first year of university, and the child, young adult, said, "You didn't teach me how to fail." And she said, "What?" Parents don't teach their children to fail, but what he was saying to her is that if I fail a goal, I haven't been taught what to do then. The goal is to achieve. And then what happens when I don't achieve the goal? I feel ashamed. I can't tell you. And so, you know, the child dropped out of university and felt they couldn't tell their parent that they dropped out. Now, that's an awful situation because they kind of disappeared and pretended to be in university, because not that they didn't have loving and caring parents, but they didn't know how to voice the fact that this goal to get through university, they'd failed. So in other words, if we fail a goal, it doesn't mean we can't begin again and achieve the same goal, but it's really important. So we wouldn't teach our children to fail, but we do have to teach our children that we do fail sometimes and we can begin again. So if I'm failing by the time I got to 10, I can start again at 1 and then re-look up, where was it on this ladder? Which number was it that I began to fail? I can start again. You know, in other words, at university, I can retake the year. I can do this again. If I don't pass this exam, I can take it again. It's still a goal. So in other words, failing at something doesn't mean that I give up that goal. In fact, the opposite. You know, what makes us stronger is failing and then going on to achieve it, but looking at what happened in that failure. So something that only becomes a failure when we fail to understand what happened, you know, so that I think that's really important as well.
Wow, that's really invaluable, very insightful indeed. And I think this will be very useful to our listeners listening in, because yes, as we know, in reality, we fail at doing things. Sometimes we fail. Sometimes it's not the right thing that we want to do, or not the right time, or we don't have the right resources or support around us to do whatever it is we want. So yeah, we're back again to reflection, aren't we? Where we started at. And actually, you started at one thing before reflection that I do want to touch on now before the end of the show. You started at about our mental health and well-being, and before you start talking about reflection. So maybe this is a good time to come back to that again and include it in this reflection of where we are in ourselves in starting this whole New Year's goals and resolutions.
So I guess in terms of reflection being what am I thinking and what am I feeling? And so very simplistically, if we simplistically put into two categories, in what I'm feeling and thinking, am I able to think in a way that's healthy for me? So healthy thinking is, you know, a sort of more optimistic approach, the merciful, the compassionate approach. Or what's unhealthy for me is if I keep second guessing myself, I tell myself, oh, well, you've not achieved things before. What makes you think you're going to achieve again? So I don't like the word negative. I don't use the word negative, you know, negative thoughts. I like to think of thoughts as either healthy for me. This is either healthy for me to think this way, or it's unhealthy. So something unhealthy for me is self-sabotaging myself or sabotaging anyone else. So if I'm not lifting myself up, and I'm not lifting someone else up, then not literally sabotage, but when we say self-sabotage, we know what we mean. I'm pushing myself down or I'm pushing someone else down. So it's really important that my starting point is I'm about to lift myself up. If I'm not in a healthy state of mind, and I know that historically I'm always telling myself, I don't lack self-esteem, I lack self-confidence, I push myself down. Sort that out before I go for the goal, because that will impact the goal. The voice in your head will change the outcome of the goal. And, you know, this is sort of common knowledge now, isn't it? But a lot of people still do it. They still sabotage their goals. They have the right idea, but then the sabotage comes in, or someone else sabotages you. So I have to be a bit robust, don't I? And that's why making a goal. It sounds great. Oh, goals, and it's New Year. Let's have some New Year's resolution. It sounds all good and all of that. And then reality. So have your reality check. It's hard work. You need people around you who lift you up. Oh, I will lift myself up. If I don't have that, I'm going to. So be careful what your state of mind is there.
That's really important, isn't it? And maybe this is a good message in the last couple of minutes of the show to leave with our listeners there about our state of mind, our positivity, how to, if we need help with that state of mind, and if maybe difficult things are happening, illnesses are going around, COVID's on the rise, everything, worldly things are happening. We may need some help with that. And people should go and seek that help indeed. And that in itself could be a goal to achieve, to get yourself some help to be able to look after yourself.
Well, actually, again, these are conversations having different people who their goal is to surround themselves with more healthy relationships. In other words, if it's friendships, surround themselves with healthy friendships in order to do what you're talking about.
And listeners, if you want to surround yourself with healthy friendships, how are you going to start? And we're winding down to the last few seconds of the show now. I think we're in the last 30 seconds, but we're going to leave you with this to reflect, as Imelda mentioned many times this evening, reflecting on yourself to know, how can I be better? Where can I start? Where can I make that white sheet in front of me? Because we all can make our own white sheets at whatever moment we want and put ourselves in that place, but we may need some help. So if you need help in doing this, please ring in the studio and we can advise you where to go for that help. And there's lots of help available. Thank you, Imelda, so much for being here with us this evening. We really appreciate you being here. Jazakallah khairan.
Always a pleasure.